In Kentucky, something remarkable has happened between 2016 and 2023. The state's divorce rate dropped about 25%, far more than the national decline of 18% during the same period. The turning point came in 2018 when Kentucky became the first state in the country to make joint 50-50 child custody the default standard in divorce cases for parents. Fit parents. Supporters say the law is changing the game that keeps both parents equally involved, lowers conflict, and create more stability for children. But critics raise serious concerns, especially in situations involving domestic abuse, where the burden may fall on survivors to prove why equal custody isn't safe. Still, Kentucky's bold move has sparked national attention. Other states are beginning to follow suit, studying whether equal parenting as a starting point could reshape not only custody battles, but the very future of marriage and family in America. I'm gonna go ahead and start it off with this clip.
Rates are dropping in Kentucky. I went there to figure out why. In 2018, Kentucky became the first state to make 50-50 shared custody the default. That means that children split their time equally between both parents, and fathers pay less in child support the more time that they spend with their children. Before that, judges decided custody based on what they called the best interest of the child. Fathers said that usually relegated them to an every other weekend arrangement, the so-called Disneyland dad effect, while mothers got to spend most of the time with their children. Since the law passed, divorce rates have dropped. Between 2016 and 2023, divorces in the state fell 25%, compared to 18% nationwide. It's hailed as a victory for fathers' rights, but the story is more complicated. Some critics of the law say that people are staying in abusive marriages because they're afraid of leaving their children alone with a parent with a history of violence. One mom told me that her husband nearly killed her in 2023. She filed criminal charges and he was arrested. But less than 2 weeks after he got out of jail, a judge awarded him 50% custody of their son, indicating that the abuse wasn't a factor since he didn't lay hands on the child. The law has become a model for other states. Arkansas, West Virginia, Florida, and Missouri have passed their own versions of the equal custody presumption. Around 20 other states are considering it.
Did you know that equal shared parenting laws decrease divorce rates? Well, it's true, and Kentucky proved it. In 2018, Kentucky passed a 50-50 equal shared parenting law. And since then, divorce rates have slowly declined. 25% declined, to be exact. Now, I know what some of these crazy toxic women are out here going to say, well, that's because women are locked in their marriages. No, that's because instead of walking away and thinking that they can weaponize the family courts to take the kids and get a shit ton of money, women realize that that's no longer possible in the state of Kentucky. So they're staying. They're working on their marriage. They're going to marriage counseling, and they're making it work in the best interest of their families. But the divorce system, where there's no fault and where there's no 50-50, it's easy for a woman to walk away because she knows she's going to get the lion's share of the assets. She's probably going to get majority custody, and she's probably going to get child support. So what's keeping her there? If it's not the perfect situation and it's not Prince Charming like in the movies, she doesn't want to stay. Toxic women will choose their happiness over their family. Men every day will choose their family over their own happiness. And that's the big difference. But when you take away the options of that financial gain of child support and the guarantee of custody, women are choosing to stay. 50-50 equal share parenting laws are not only in the best interest of children, I guess they're also in the best interest of marriages and the nuclear family.
There is something common about the states that have done it. I definitely heard something about West Virginia, Missouri, Arkansas. I know Florida. These are all pretty much red states. What we've noticed is that a lot of these blue states are so anti-men, they've become anti-family. And that nonsense about the abuse, I'm not buying it. Most women who are in an abusive relationship have the opportunity to leave, and that's not an excuse to go ahead and stay in an abusive relationship. It's statistically correct that men do take care of their children in a lot of cases better than they would if they were with the woman. So all of that is straight up trash. It's good to see that people are starting to wake up to this. And it also shows that women basically don't want to lose the money. we know we've lost our perceived value outside of our utility. And there's a lot of opportunistic women who were able to take advantage of it, but won't be able to play around with the family courts soon enough.
No, look, let me say this. Shout out to Andy Beshear, who's the governor of Kentucky, for making this happen, making it better for men in the future now. I got my divorce was final in 2016, so that really didn't affect me, and it really didn't hurt me regardless, because we already had agreement before we left the mediation. But for the men who are dealing with this now and from here on out, who's especially in my state has a better chance, and it should have been like it should have always been like it. Never should have not been like it. But since we got to be part of one of the pioneers of that, I'm all for it. So I'm just happy to see that these guys are getting a fresh shake in the situation, and for the individual women who are lying, are making stuff up and putting frivolous charges against men who saying that they supposedly abuse them, knowing that's not the case. They are taking advantage of the system and they're trying to do that. But now that they see right through the BS, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great situation. Make them prove these allegations, not just hearsay. Because I know I shared this before. Like my ex used that emergency protective order just to get me out of the house so she could try to take advantage and take full custody of my son. I had to deal with that stuff. And I was in the midst about to go on a trip to San Diego before I was able to get that done. Now I'm worried about not getting to go to San Diego because I got to deal with a court date the day before. I'm stressing about it. I'm thinking about canceling my trip, canceling the plane. I didn't get the insurance on the plane, so I would have lost money. But fortunately, my lawyer did a great job and got that all settled and taken care of. That wasn't the case. So now I could be stress-free while I'm on my vacation and not have to worry about that stuff. So, fellas, just whatever perspective state you're in, man, know your laws, know your family laws. Not saying you need to know them word for word, but just make sure you're aware. Make sure you're aware of them.
I'm all for it. Equal rights, right? I mean, it's pretty cut and dry. For a long time, men have gotten the short end of the stick in family court and divorce court, alimony, all that good stuff. Why not equalize it, right? Like Trev said, we know the statistics on single motherhood, single fatherhood, the nuclear family, all of that good stuff. This is a no-brainer. But I mean, legislation is always behind culture. Right, it's always a little bit behind culture, so it's just catching up to what it should be, and I think it's dope. I think that the argument that some people who are in abusive relationships are going to stay, that's probably true for some percentage of the people, but you can't shortchange a whole demographic of people because one small percentage of people have a bad situation. It becomes your responsibility to do what needs to be done in order to rectify the situation. That's my thoughts.
I have personally experienced, the same accusations that Hink just mentioned, and it kind of just like had me go through a flashback. I had a restraining order saying that I was verbally abusive. If that even makes sense, you know what I mean? But it's like the woman, especially a woman scorned, she would try anything in her power to try to, like obliterate you, take your children away, hurt you in the most inhumane way, which is, attacking a man's children and taking his children away, you know. And I'm kind of like, I don't want to go through any flashbacks, but one thing I will say is that when I was going through what I was going through, it was kind of eerie to me how the elderly black men just told me, take her to court, take her to court, take her to court. Because in our culture, it's normal for women to abuse the system. And it's up to you to get to the court first in order to get, some type of favor. You know what I mean? And it was like, and I was, still a strong black man. Like, man, I ain't gonna put that white man in my business, and I'm not gonna, do all of that. But then it came to a point where it's like I had to in order to see my child, in order for her to let me see my child. So I would, I love to see this. I love to hear this. I hope that it, definitely reaches all 50 states for sure. Because out here, in LA, especially LA County, the court system is very, very biased when it comes to fathers. I mean, that is one of the most depressing places you will ever be when it comes to men trying to fight for their children. So yeah, I'm all for it. I personally experienced it. I definitely would not want any other man to experience what I've experienced because it is painful. When it comes to a woman, playing with your kid and holding your kid as a pawn to try to hurt you.
All right. Go ahead, Dope.
Um, I think the law is a good thing. Like you said, 50-50. If they want equality, they get equality. Uh I won't buy the like the sympathy thing of like, oh, we stand in abusive relationships because one, if a nigga hit you and you call the police, like that's grounds for him being an unfit parent. So the idea that you can be in a stay in an abusive relationship, that's just stupid. It don't make sense. Um, if you got paperwork on them. But outside of that, I think until women actually hold each other accountable, then I don't care. So until women start, whenever somebody abuses, these things, until they actually start speaking out every time when somebody abuses it, then I don't care. So yeah, that's my position.
Play a little bit more of this clip.
There are reports coming out of Kentucky that the divorce rate has completely plummeted. 25%. It's gone down 25%. Like, that's significant. When the divorce rate nationally rests, I don't know, I think a little bit above 50%. To have it drop 25% in one state means to pay attention. It's a reason to pay attention. The only explanation there is for this is because Kentucky passed a law that all custody settlements start exactly 50-50 between the parents. In other words, Kentucky has removed the mother bias that exists across the board in this country when it comes to divorce and custody. As a result, the divorce rate has plummeted. That's interesting. It makes one wonder a bit, doesn't it? It makes one wonder if there is an incentive to get divorced, or a reward, a financial reward for getting divorced. And as soon as you get rid of that reward or that incentive, that's interesting. Every state needs to pass this law. It needs to be a nationwide thing. Kudos to the state of Kentucky for pioneering this badly needed and long overdue legislation.
What if, when you file for divorce, you knew that your spouse would get 50-50 custody? Would that affect your decision? Kentucky has a law where 50-50 is the default. Now, obviously, there are exceptions if there's, domestic violence or whatever, but the default is 50-50. So not like Detroit where the default is every other weekend. If you knew your ex was going to get the kids 50% of the time right off, would that affect your decision to file for divorce? Why or why not?
Go ahead, HD. It's on you.
That's what's up. I was reading on this, so just recently, because just now I hadn't heard much about it. The whole thing is about trying to keep families together, and so that
HD, we lost you. And you froze it on cam too. I'm not sure if you can see that on your end or not. But if you can hear me, you might want to go back out and come back in. We'll come back to him. Go ahead, Willie. You're on mute, just so you know, Willie.
Once you do anything to disincentivize women from using marriage as a tool for financial gain or leverage, the divorce rates are going to drop. It's like once you make something illegal, the rate of that thing also tends to drop. It's not rocket science. It's not unusual. It's nothing remarkable. They said that, hey, women, now you're not automatically getting child support. You're not automatically getting the upper hand on the women, on the fathers. You're not automatically going to be entitled to alimony. So now women are no longer seeing as, divorce as a means to, gain. So they're not doing it. It's long overdue. I think that I know Hank's been through it, and Sherm said he's been, but I know a lot of guys, even especially dealing with my nonprofit for fathers, that go through this thing where women will scream about abuse when they come to getting a divorce because it gets you out the house. They get a temporary protection order, so they get an extra month to pre-stage and plan and strategize. You don't get to see your kids most of the time. All of those things, right? So us having all been through that, one of the things that I also laugh at when women bring it up is abuse. And the thing is this: no woman deserves to be abused. However, just because your son's father beat your ass doesn't mean that he's going to be dangerous towards his kids. Those kids didn't do anything to him. Those kids don't have him in that mental space where he thinks putting hands and feet on you makes sense. And because he did it to the kids doesn't mean that he's going to do it to you. And when you look at the correlation between fathers or men who committed domestic violence towards their spouses, less than 8% of them have ever committed any type of violence towards their children. However, when you look at women's side, with women's relationships having the highest occurrence of domestic violence, look at the correlation to how they actually abuse those children, it's almost at a 40% clip. So when women say that there should be exceptions made for abuse, there shouldn't be, because again, just because somebody beat your ass doesn't mean they're gonna beat their kids' ass.
All right, go ahead, HD.
Yeah, my bad. So I was just saying that the goal is not so much of making sure that each person gets 50-50 custody. The goal was to, in design, based on what I read, was to keep families intact, because the research shows that when the kids are raised in a two-parent household, they do better. So that's what the law was centered around. And so I understand the men's situations and how that unfolded, and that's unfortunate. The thing of it is that, um, as we know, women tried to get away from responsibilities, and so this was really just an attempt to make sure that uh, women were not doing that. And so it starts at 50-50. It doesn't mean that it will continue to be 50-50. It just means that's where it starts, and then based upon the well-being of where the kid would actually thrive the best out of the two, that's where they would go, which is just makes sense if you decide not to be together.
So it's a starting point. It's not really a guarantee throughout the
Correct.
duration. Okay.
So they end up reassessing after a certain amount of time. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what's based upon what I just read. It starts at 50-50, and then based upon the research that they do, based on the two parents, they'll decide what the percentage is.
If you continue reading what he's talking about, it also tells you the majority of the time custody ends up becoming favored or slanted in the father's favor. So
Yeah.
there's also that. So I don't want before people try to run with that and what he said, thinking that okay, well, women still end up the upper hand. They don't. The majority
No,
of the time when they come, not I know you weren't, but I know people would have tried to draw that conclusion from it because I've read that entire article that you're talking about. Like this is one of the things I've had to be informed on, given the fact that I work with my nonprofit. I have to explain shit like this to people. But I think it's 70% of the time when they come and do like the reevaluation, the fathers are given more than the mothers are. And
what metric? What metric do they use to end up coming to that conclusion 70% of the time? I'm just curious. Like, is it
financial capability, time actually spent with the child? If you look at, unfortunately, if you look at kids who live with their mothers, they tend to spend more time away from the mom than they do when they're with the dad. For example, dads, we go to your practices, we'll sit there. We tend to spend more time with our kids, like hands-on, like playing with them. So all of those things come into effect when they actually look at this. And these are the same things that would be applicable in any other state. If you look at the numbers for the even the blue states, if you look at the numbers as a whole, you will find that fathers, like when a kid has his father in his life, his father spends more time with him than the mother does.
So some of the information that is it says, to give more context, is really based upon the best interest of the child. It says considering factors like parents' willingness and ability to cooperate, their proximity to each other and the child's school, the parent's stability and the child's specific needs, such as age. So it says while the goal of 50-50 custody is an equal division of time, the legal definition of a custodial parent is not always 50-50, but rather based on the parent with the most overnight stays.
Let's look at some fine print in there too.
Hold on. Read that again. Say that again for me. Humble Dad.
Yes, sir. Are you want me to thing, or is there a particular? They consider factors like the parent's willingness and ability to cooperate, their proximity to each other and the child's school, the parent's stability and the child's specific needs, such as age. While the goal of 50-50 custody is an equal division of time, the legal definition of a custodial parent is not always 50-50, but rather based on the parent with the most overnight stays.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's general for everywhere, right?
Yeah, that's everywhere I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this particular rule that they're doing, the goal is to make sure that the family stays together, as opposed to tear apart.
Yeah. I'm glad you read that last part, because that's the part that I didn't know about, because I know you may have some parents that may not want to be as involved, or they feel like they may be forced to be involved at that point. And so it at least still looks at to see if it's more beneficial to be with the parent that actually wants to put the time in. So that makes a lot of sense. We'll play this last clip to this, and then we'll see if we get some more reactions.
Find it funny or even a little strange that the second Kentucky added laws for, equality in child support and custody cases during divorce, the suddenly divorce rates dropped 25%. It's almost like a lot of these women were only filing for divorce because they knew that they were going to win no matter what the circumstances were, right? Like, you could literally be a cheating tramp that has kids with other men and you're still going to get half. Not anymore. Now it's like, all right, we got to look at the case and see who's actually better for the kids, who can, has a place to provide for them and can actually, give them a stable environment. Not, okay, well, you got a pussy, so you get the kids. And well, since the man works, he's going to pay for it. That's not how that works anymore. And I just think it's funny that the second they enact this, the rates drop. It's almost like if women can't have their life subsidized by their ex, they're more willing to try to make things work. And don't be like, but women are staying in abusive relationships. 71% of abuse isn't unilateral, meaning at least 7 out of 10 victims simply lost the fight they started. Not trying to cheapen what real victims go through, just saying that most of you aren't that. And rare cases don't, justify the whole. So you're still wrong.
I'll bet you didn't know that if you make custody hearings and divorce proceedings 50-50 to start, you actually reduce divorce by 25%. At least that's the example we have from Kentucky. Now, of course, the Wall Street Journal tried to paint this in a bad light. They said a law setting 50-50 shared custody as state standard is hailed as a victory for fathers, but critics say it puts mothers and children at risk. 50-50 custody to start the proceedings puts children at risk? That is such a fucking weird statement to make. Because this doesn't change anything. Like if someone's abusive, or someone's a bad parent, or somebody's on drugs. No, this just means that when you start your divorce proceeding, we start from an assumed position of where the parents are equal. Where their custody of the child is equal. How the fuck does that put mothers and children at risk? It doesn't. All this said was that both parents are equal. Ladies, this is equality. This is what it's like when both men and women are viewed on an equal plane. And just to be very clear, Seeing the parents as equal is what it should be.
So you guys saying that this is a win for the men, that you would like to see
Okay, check
it
this out.
in every
I'm not
state.
gonna.
It's a win
I'm
for
not gonna
children.
say it's a win for men per se, unless it's a byproduct, right? It's not like this is for men. Don't get it twisted for a second to think that anybody's still in the favor of men. I mean, some are so anti-men that they won't even go through these measures. But what it's about is that we are on the verge of a population collapse. Birth rates are significantly down. People are not having children. We're going to have to start doing things differently. If people are married, if families are staying together, then we could probably have some decent families, and we probably won't be raising as many degenerates. So yes, this is a good thing for men. It makes more sense. And being that I am for families, I think it's a great thing. But that's what it all boils down to. We are quickly losing the population. If you look towards Asia, you'll see what we could be facing in a moment if people don't start doing things about it. Government has to do something about it, because this was a ridiculous overcorrection. We understand that there were some women who have had issues and may have been stranded without anyone to take care of them, but this was a wildly over. This was like, I couldn't believe how bad it was. Like, I don't think we should have ever gotten to this point, but we're here. So hopefully we can start making more corrections so we can continue to have thriving families.
I know you spoke about corrections. Like, what other corrections could be made? You guys have any ideas you want to put out there that could be made to help keep families together?
Make child support taxable for the person receiving it.
But wouldn't that be a double tax though?
For who? Because if a man is paying child support, he should receive a credit for that, the same way the mother should have to, and then the mother should have to be taxed for that. And excuse me, let me not say the father, mother. The custodial parent who is receiving child support should have to account for that on their income tax. For he's not spending it on himself, and he's being forced to spend that on another household. It's almost as if, like, you're saying, okay, cool, you get a guy, paying $2,000 a month in child support. That's extra $24,000 that mom gets. From the standpoint, I want to put somebody's tax. That woman.
I hear that towards it is currently.
It would assume it would encourage more men to pay their child support, because then we get a credit for doing so, and then two, it would also keep people who are in this situation already. It will keep them on an even playing field, because now, though, it's going to further disincentivize women from filing from divorce, because now not only are the men getting 50-50 custody as a basis, that's the starting point. They're also, that money that you get paid from child support is going to count against you on your taxes. So that's a second step they could put in place to make it more fair.
But wouldn't it be less of a chance that the child support will be paid, considering if the man is the one that's making the most money, and that's one of the things that they're looking at, then the child will go to the man and there would be no need for child support.
So what happens with child support is they look at the income of both parents, and then they base that off of, okay, well, who has the most overnight stays? If the mom has the most overnight stays, she has a case in 48 states where she's going to be automatically awarded child support. In that case, so they'll say, okay, the mom makes 100, the dad makes 175. That dad is going to be responsible, I think, for 60% of what that child expenses are, and they're going to calculate that based off of his income in comparison to hers. Then that once they make that a calculation, that's what he's going to pay every month. And then there's going to be additional things, like he's going to be responsible for providing insurance for the child. So he either has to do that through his job, or he can do it through the state. The majority of people are going to choose to do it through the state because it's cheaper. Because for a guy to go get insurance, for a family, or say me and my kids, we insurance is almost $1,400 a month, right? but I have really nice insurance. We'll say the average is $600. He want to pay the $600 because most states are going to charge you $250 to $300 for insurance if it's going through the state. That's going to be added on top of his child support. So if his obligation is $1,000 and his insurance is going to be $300, that's $1,300 a month he has to pay. The mom is only going to get $1,000, but he's going to be deducted, $675 or $650 and $650 out of his checks, or depending on how he gets paid. Right now, that mom gets that money free and clear, with no sort of accounting for how it's spent, no having to justify where the money goes, and then also no having to declare that it was even given to her. So if we're trying to make things fair, that would probably be the next biggest thing we could do to make it fair.
That's what I'm asking. I understand that position as it is now, with the 50 custody. If they are saying, based upon several different factors, whatever is best for the kid is where they're going to go. So if the best is for the kid to go to their dad, which you said was in favor whenever there is an actual counsel of finding out what is going on, then that means that the kid is going to go with the dad, and more likely than not, the dad makes more money than the mom.
Right. So the thing is, then in that case, right? So don't look at it as mom and dad, because that's not fair. Look at it as custodial parent, non-custodial parent.
Well, the reason why
I know why. I'm just saying, for the conversation, because it automatically paints men as like we're automatically non-custodial, and that's not how it goes.
No. But the position is, for this particular situation, is that they're saying that this is a win for men,
right?
Because they're not having to battle with the wife again, right? So that would mean that also, that while women are saying that they got to stay because of the abuse or whatnot, XYZ, I'm saying that if the money is, if that's the argument, because the argument is not about custodial, non-custodial, it's literally about men and women, and that women typically get custody after divorce takes place. So this is supposed to be where it balances the playing field. So that means that, okay, now the man will have the responsibility of the child more times than not, if they so split based upon the criteria. So right. I'm saying, then wouldn't that make more sense to just not have child support altogether?
Well, no, because then that would be unfair, because when things were, say, normal, when things were unfair, that the mom should be paying child support now, or the non-custodial parent. Gotcha. And so what I'm saying is that child support, regardless for the non-custodial parent, they should get a credit for the money they pay. The custodial parent should have to add that to his bottom line at the end of the year.
Okay, so the person that is making less is going to be paying child support.
No, not just the person who's making less, the non-custodial parent.
I understand that, but okay. I'm saying for the purpose of the statement and then the argument, it's typically going to be the person, if they're changing, and I'll research some more, is going to lean in favor of the person where the kid will have the most opportunity, really, right? And right. We know that dads typically make more in most of these situations, right?
Agreed.
And so I'm saying, then that means that mom will be paying this fee or the child support, and so she will get a credit.
Right.
Okay, I'm with you. So whatever the case may be, you're just saying give a credit to the person so that all money is documented. That's what you're saying.
Exactly.
I guess I kind of disagree with taxing it. Because you people have to take care of their kids. So you go to work, you make money, you take care of your family. So you go to work, you make money, you don't live with the custodial parent. You give her money so that she can take and put that towards bills and things like that. So I think that's double taxing. So I wouldn't advocate for that part, but the system is definitely flawed for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think the only thing you probably want to do is make it count as considered income. That's what you're gonna have to do. Make it count as income.
But it is, but it's not.
It's not.
That's not what they. It's not.
I would love to make
it definitely is considered income. You it actually counted to help you to buy a house.
Yeah,
but it don't.
Qualify for a house.
But you don't have to claim it as income though. That's optional.
yeah.
I mean,
It's
but
not
of course, people are going to
mandatory.
claim it as income, though. You
Yeah,
could only
No,
claim
everybody's
no.
you
gonna
could only
On
you could
certain
only claim what
aspects,
you expose. But
everybody's gonna
no.
claim.
But
Everybody's gonna claim it
Sherm,
when
they
it
not gonna.
benefits them.
Yeah, exactly.
That's common sense. That's not. I don't. That's not even an argument to make. Of course, people are going to claim it to buy a house, but when it comes to them qualifying to get into a school or getting a grant, they're not going to claim it because they want to have their income lower. So
Yeah.
that's the problem. It needs to
They
either
not.
be or not be.
right.
Yeah, they not
Yeah.
claiming on any government assistance either. So if they on Section 8, they not claiming that. Getting food stamps or a WIC, they not claiming all
Yeah, but
that.
that's kind of like the American way, though. Some people they like say when I was doing mortgages, some people be like, yeah, I make 50,000 a year, but then when you get the financials, it's 42, and that can make a big difference on their qualifications or not. You know what I mean? So some people overstate and understate their income. It really just depends.
Yeah, I guess, and I don't know if I would have to process it deeper, but I guess I'm not even gonna say this will be a solution, but if you if you make money and then you give it to her, then maybe you not pay taxes on it and she pay tax. One person has to pay taxes on it, right? Double
Right.
taxing it doesn't make sense. But
That
if it
is
now goes into her
literally
pocket,
what I said.
That's
oh,
what
I
he's
thought,
saying.
oh yeah, because I didn't hear that. I just thought he said tax it in general versus
Like,
not just switch the tax liability. I didn't know that he was saying
yeah,
that.
switch the tax liability from the person receiving it to the person paying it.
I could definitely agree with that part for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You definitely get a tax credit for it.
And
Wasn't Trump
with
supposed to do something about that?
He was talking
Was
about
Trump was Trump supposed to do something? No.
He's put forth legislation that will help fathers. I don't know where it is. I look forward to seeing it, but some of the stuff that he was trying to do for men is, I just don't think it's gonna happen. Because some of the shit that he was talking about, like, it gives people a really good argument to say he hates women, because all of the unfair stuff that happens to men that he's trying to so heavy-handedly address, I don't think that he's going to be able to get that to fly with the other side being so anti-men and pro weird shit. So, but like he's talking about making it nationwide where there is no longer perpetual alimony. Like Florida already got rid of it. But then, as soon as he starts talking about it, like women are like, well, how am I supposed to survive if I don't get alimony? Get a fucking job. But like seeing that type of stuff, if he did that, that would be great. Limiting spousal support to, a dollar amount, which would be like 10% of the man's salary. Like the stuff that he's talking about sounds really good. But if he somehow can get that to go through, I think that he would have enough men out here trying to get him a third term if he can pull off any of that type of shit.
So, Willie, I have a question for you. Do you feel like there are any incentives for men to actually get married in the United States?
Yeah, those of us that have our shit together. Like those of us that don't have to worry about this system, those of us that can afford to protect ourselves, who are educated on what actually happens. Yeah, there's plenty of incentives to get married, like having somebody to share your life with, only having one vagina to worry about. Like I can do this shit forever. But for the majority of people, I would say that the other 80% of men, no, absolutely no benefit. They're getting married for survival and help.